to another week of Align Online. It's good to have you here with us today. We got a little bit of a bigger group here with three of us. Say hi, everybody.
Oh, hey
Hey,
there.
guys.
Graylin and Zach are here today, and we're excited to have Zach. Zach's usually on the back end of our program here every week, but we got him in on the convo this week. So we're excited to have you here to continue this series on our foundations of leadership. If you tuned in last week, we talked about our foundational principle that everyone can lead. And this week, we're talking about our foundational principle that everyone has intrinsic value. Coming up in the weeks ahead, we're going to talk about our foundational principle of leadership and how we define that word here on our team, as well as the concept of authentic community and how that leads to a transformation and an ability to receive truth and to help us grow and transform. So we'll talk about that in the weeks ahead as we unpack our 4 foundations of leadership. But to get things started, before we do our introductions here again, I just want to ask our community, if you're tuning in here, type it in the comments. What is a foundational principle for you that guides the way you lead? So we're talking about our foundational principles here at Alignment Leadership and what guides us and shapes our thinking when we approach this concept of leadership. We want to hear from you. What's a foundational principle for you? What do you think about? What guides the way you lead? So share that in the comments. Say hi to the community. We'd love to engage with you there. Let's say hi to these other guys. Zach, since you're the new face here, come on, man, introduce yourself.
I know I'm usually behind the scenes running the 1-2s, real low pressure. I'm excited. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for letting us bend your arm into really weird angles to force
you
to do this.
We've been begging Zach for weeks to be a part of this.
I usually watch you guys each other. I think I'm your biggest fan. I watch you guys every week and I talk to my computer screen. I take notes about what you guys talk about. And now the pressure's on. Now I get to talk with you guys.
This is perfect. I couldn't imagine a better scenario.
Right?
Yeah, man.
I know my nieces are in the next room watching, so I'm excited to see what they put as their leadership principles. They are 3 and 4. Hey, everyone's a leader, right?
That's right. Everyone's a leader. There you go. I think when I was 4 years old, my foundational principle of leadership is what's yours is mine and what's mine is mine, and pretty much everything here in this room is mine, so let me have it.
Yes.
I think that's how I led when I was 4.
Yeah. And then Graylin, you need no introduction. Get the big behind you.
Man, it is always good to be a part of these events. And, like we were saying earlier, when we get to talk and prepare for these events backstage, we're always kind of just taken back by some of the things that, Josh and Zach are contributing. So as we began to discuss it this week, we just had to have it. We had to get this crew together on this platform in this format, just to really create some really engaging conversation. So, it's always a pleasure, always exciting to be a part of these. And I'm really happy to have, the time to connect with Josh and Zach. They're in Austin. I'm in San Antonio. So I get to see my friends, in person or virtually. So
we actually have all of Texas covered because I'm in Dallas.
You're in Dallas. That's right.
Yeah.
In-law's house.
We got the I-35 corridor covered at least.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I just got word from my nieces. They are 7 and 5. So people are
correct.
Wow.
The pressure really is on.
Yeah, you can't get it wrong when they're that age. It's got to be precise, down to the month, 4.5, not 4.
Well, so since I'm usually, running things behind the scenes, before we dive in, can we talk real quick about GLS?
Yeah,
sure.
Gosh,
what's that?
GLS, Global Leadership Summit. It's a collection of some of the best of speakers, the greatest minds, thought leaders across the world right now.
Absolutely.
And they're going to come together August 6th and 7th, and we're just going to be able to sit at their feet and soak up their wisdom. I'm excited to see what our team takes away and then takes back and applies at Alignment Leadership. The cool thing is this year, everybody can join virtually.
Right.
And you can do it from your home or your mother-in-law's home, wherever you are. So go to glsaustin.com and you can buy your ticket. So I
Yeah,
know we
man.
have some discussions here on Align Online about GLS and what we took away and how we're wrestling with the concepts and going to apply it. So I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of the cool things too is like this year, Alignment Leadership is the title sponsor. And so in that graphic Zach put up, you see our name next to ABBA and the GLS brand. And so, man, we are all about partnering, connecting leaders. And the tagline this year is when leaders get better, all of Austin wins. And so we're just happy to be able to contribute in any way we can. So it's going to be amazing. So who are you most excited to hear from? We'll start with you, Josh.
Hey, so I have been a long time fan of the Clifton Strengths Finder and the tools that come out of that group. So Marcus Buckingham is speaking this year, and so I'm really eager to hear what he has to say. I have no doubt it'll be really affirming and really align well with even what we're talking about today, with like everyone having intrinsic value. I know that they have a really high value for the uniqueness of individuals and helping people tap into their strengths. So yeah, I've for a decade or more, I've loved the resources they put out. So I'm excited to hear Marcus Buckingham. How about you guys?
Sweet. Hey, I just saw one of my favorite speakers on the online chat room, Denise Holiday. So I hope she will join us for GLS.
Oh yeah.
Another speaker I'm excited to see. It's where my worlds collide. So it's Michael Todd, pastor of Transformation Church. Yeah, I think he's going to bring the energy. Like you're going to listen to him. You're going to be motivated on the back end. You're going to have to do something.
Yeah.
And the style, isn't he? He's a real stylish looking guy too, right? Am I thinking of the right guy?
Dude. Yeah.
He's going to bring.
He's wild.
That's right.
Has a great new book out as well. Relationship Goals is I think a New York Times bestseller. They are definitely like kind of revolutionized what it means to like, be the church in this era, having faith in this era. So it's very, very exciting. I think Craig Rochelle is always one of my favorites because
classic.
He's like an OG when it comes to leadership and ministry and systems. He's his church YouVersion app, Adventure Kids for Life Church. My kids love all of their resources and their materials. So like if you talk about being a resource to the world, Craig Rochelle and what his church and community and leadership are doing are somebody that I just really love and look forward to hearing from every time. So
yeah,
I'm excited.
It's a great lineup. Yeah.
I'm gonna lock in my spot at glsaustin.com.
Boom.
Align with the title sponsor for glsaustin.com. Because when Austin gets better, when Austin leaders get better, all of Austin gets better. Right?
That's true. That's it.
Yeah, that's exciting. So so to jump off of that, great things coming in just a couple weeks right around the corner. Today, man, if you're tuning in and you're listening to this and you're excited about the GLS event coming up in a couple weeks, our conversations today and in the next coming weeks are just kind of basically priming the pump for you, getting you excited. So we're digging into foundations of leadership here on our side, and it's just going to lead right in. It'll just kind of get your mind and your heart ready to soak in a whole bunch of great information and teaching at GLS. So today our topic is the intrinsic value of people. And when we were talking about this, you guys, yesterday, and our teammate Kenzie was with us in the preparation, just discussing things, we were having some moments together. It was, it was probably one of my favorite, preparation times we've had so far. Just digging into something that I could tell we all just sincerely, deeply believe in. And so what we wanted to do today is kind of like what we did last week. Let's just kind of like muse around a little bit about the definition of this, how we define this principle for us, and how it really shapes the way that we lead. So intrinsic value, the first thing that I think that comes to my mind is what we talked about, is how we start from this vantage point that the day someone's born, they have this incredible, immeasurable, unmaintainable, you can't increase it, decrease it, change it. You're just born with this really special thing as a human being. You have just this intrinsic value. It's there the moment you're born. And we even just sat on that moment for a while. So tell me, even, and tell our group here, what you guys were thinking when you hear and you think about that thought, that starting point. We don't obviously think of, infants as leaders, but we think about leadership as like, well, anybody can lead. That's what we talked about last week. So it's, there's this starting point for all of us, the intrinsic value we have the moment that we enter this world. So how do you guys respond to that? What is it? How do you interact with that thought in this principle?
Yeah. So there was a question asked on a line online last week. It was like, when did you realize that you were a leader or that you had influence?
Mm-hmm.
And I remember like a specific moment where I realized I had influence. I just hadn't been using it very well. I never had wrestled with where I was leading people to. And I think one of the reasons I'd put off leadership was, one, the responsibility that came with it. But two, I didn't recognize my value as a leader, my value as an individual. It was always something for somebody else. So this principle here, the second principle, is foundational for me to understand all the other principles.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it does. In some ways, maybe we should have started with this one last week, and kind of introed with like, here's the foundation of the foundation.
Right.
The starting point, everything kind of builds on this, because we believe people have intrinsic value, then we believe anyone can lead. So yeah, I love that starting point. And here's a kind of personal connection for you, Zach. You recently in this year, had a baby boy, had your first kid. So
yeah.
So you're thinking a lot, I'm sure, about this, like, okay, this value, the life, what's ahead of this, my son and his the life he's going to build for himself, and his ability to influence and opportunities to influence and lead.
I hear him screaming in the next room, but yeah, his eyes are always on me, and he's always trying to wrestle with, like, he's learning from me, learning by what I do. He knows what I believe because of how I do things. And it has me wrestling with, like, what's my legacy? What do I want to pass on? What am I doing? What are my principles? And what if I carried that into every relationship that I had? Like, recognizing that influence in every relationship I had. I think that'd be a game changer.
Yeah. Right. I think that is where, like, to kind of go back to what Josh asked a second ago, is what does this make me think? If I truly believe this principle, and I believe it applies to every relationship and every interaction that I have, I take that same value and that same principles into a professional environment. Yeah. And that, man, just like, I think, again, that's where we as alignment leadership, as believers of these foundations, really get to change and challenge the culture, because oftentimes, we talked about it last week, when everyone should lead and everyone can lead. We talked about, like, there's this value placed on, hard skills or a role or title, a hierarchy within an organization. But when you come in with this understanding of this principle, or at least this belief in this principle, man, it just turns everything on its head. And the possibilities of, like, unlocking, that value and the human, just all of the human value of the people you work alongside is endless. And so I think I'm continuing to just kind of revisit this and grapple with this idea and these principles, like, lived out in a professional environment. It's powerful.
It is powerful. Well, I think there's a natural, we've all experienced this, that there's like a natural force that pulls us away from our teammates. So let's just talk in the work setting. This is every relationship in general. When you formulate a friendship or a romantic relationship, whatever, there's just we have a natural bent toward being pulled apart and being like, for disunity. And so with that, I think this principle helps to bring it helps me to remember. I think about, okay, Zach just had a baby added to the family. I've got my own kids too. And I just think about this concept of life story. And I think about, so for every person I'm feeling tension with or disunified with in a team setting, we're trying to work together. Maybe I'm trying to lead them, or maybe I'm just struggling to be led by them. And there's just there's like, you can feel that tension pulling you apart. This principle for me pulls me right back into that concept of like, man, they've got a life story. They're a human being. They're doing their best, just like I'm trying to do my best. And it pulls me right back into an ability to just see way beyond the circumstance of the moment and see a person who has, who's just got this incredible, background and life story behind them that led them right to this moment. And they're trying to, make sense of it too. So yeah, I love how this principle just gives me that ability to have just a much bigger picture about who people are.
Yeah, that perspective is like revolutionary for me. I mean, we've been talking a lot behind the scenes about worldview and culture and how we all show up and add to the culture, whether positively or negatively. And so somebody who's different from me actually brings a piece to the table, like brings something to work that I can't bring. So I need them. I need them to enhance my strengths and to cover my weaknesses. It's actually all of us coming together and taking ownership of this purpose that really pushes it forward.
Yeah, man.
So good.
Absolutely. I mean, that uniqueness, I think, is what this principle is all about. It's that it's acknowledging the fact that the day someone's born, we kind of believe in this aspect of, in a sense, like destiny. There's this uniqueness in their design, in their, like what you were just mentioning, Zach, but there's also just this uniqueness in the way they're supposed to apply that. So I think this principle gives us that, it gives us a starting point when we approach other people, when we're hiring, when we're building a team, when we're working together to try to just be more productive, more efficient, whatever. We've got this extra component to think. It's not just about getting the work done, but okay, there's something really unique about this person on my team. So like, there's a unique mark on this universe that they're meant to make, that nobody else can make, only them in their unique way. How can we figure out a way to bridge the two, their uniqueness, the way they're designed, and this destiny that they're on this track in this life to kind of be pursuing, and this like the purpose of our organization or our team? How do we find like that perfect kind of like crossing point where they're able to apply who they are uniquely and this value that they have uniquely to the work that we're doing?
That's big for anyone who's leading the next generation in the workplace, because millennials, Gen Z, they're all about purpose. My mom called me and she's like, hey, what do I do with these millennials? Like, how do I do anything? They don't want to show up on time. They don't want to work this 9 to 5. They don't like the grindy things. They just want to be promoted. And I'm like, Mom, tap into their value, like tap into their purpose, how they're created, the things that motivate them, because it's real. It's that age-old concept that I don't care what you know until I know that you care. And it's once I know that you value me and you see my value and you want to draw out that value, I would do anything for you. Like if you're fighting for me, I want to fight for you. I think that helps like eliminate waste. I saw a stat online that 3 out of every 8 hours of the workday are wasted outside lunch, whether that's bathroom breaks or online shopping. I would love to see the statistic after quarantine, because I bet it's the roof right now.
Maybe we wouldn't want to see that statistic.
But if they have personal ownership in pushing the purpose forward, then I think they'll give all their waking hours and their energy and their feelings towards it.
But I think that even stretches beyond any one generation in particular. I think that's to all people. When you tap into something that's so deeply ingrained in them, it's that like that value component, and you're tapping into you're either helping them discover that value for themselves. Maybe they've never articulated it, or maybe they already have some awareness of it and they're just itching to like apply it purposefully. I think that's every generation. It's not just a millennial thing. I think that's everybody. That's what we're hardwired for, that as humans.
Yeah, one of the things that your mom's question kind of reminds me of from our discussion yesterday is just the reality of living this out in a professional environment. Like it is difficult. And we talk a lot about, like one of our goals is ensuring, are doing our best, to create opportunities for employee fulfillment, for our people. And with this type of principle, it really places, a responsibility and an incredible opportunity for, a leader of an organization, a leader of a team, to figure out how to live out this particular principle in a professional environment in a way that allows for their people to, to have opportunities to do fulfilling work and to spend their time, in a fulfilling way. And so that makes me think, that's a question I have for you guys, man. I know you really kind of alluded to it, just discussing it with your mom, Zach, but what does this look like in a professional environment? What does it look like if you're leading a team or an organization? And we're still working this out as well, but what are some examples that you've either experienced personally, that it's been, you've experienced it for yourself, or you've had the opportunity to create that experience for someone else? Kind of a loaded question, but what do you guys think?
Well, so the question is how this applies in the professional setting, right? You're asking?
Yeah. How can we live this out in a professional environment? And you can use a personal example or,
Yeah. Well, I think of like what keeps me, there's a lot of talk about, in the last couple of years about like engagement, trying to keep people engaged with their work. And there's a whole bunch of different kinds of tactics and strategies, tips and guides and stuff that you can find out there for what kind of keeps people. But what I have found, for me personally, what keeps me like, and I think of a word like connected to my team, connected to my purpose, is when people call out my value. So when I'm being told by my teammates why they value me for the value I bring to them personally, maybe not even to the business. So when a teammate or even your leader comes to you and starts to just call out like, hey, I am so glad that you're on this team because this is the value you bring to me personally. It creates this connection. It creates this bond with a teammate that's like, wow. Now with that bond in place, the next thought is like, oh my gosh, let's accomplish something great together. You become like brothers, sisters. You become like, I don't know, teammates just almost isn't a word that isn't like deep enough for me sometimes. Like it doesn't yet fully describe like what you're trying to do as you fight for this common purpose together. And so I think that's in practical way, like in a work setting, you're calling out the value and you're speaking to the value of the people around you. Sometimes with like the value they bring to you as a team or a business, but maybe not even that. Just why do you like them? What makes your day better because they're in the same room as you or on
That's exactly what I was thinking.
On the same virtual team.
And we've
That's awesome.
done that before. Like, I mean, I come from a church background, working in ministry, and so I'm a little more familiar with this process of like mining value in other people, revealing how they're naturally wired, their gifts, like the good that I see in them. But we got to do that as a small group, as a team recently, and tears were shed. It was awesome and powerful and energizing. And for some people, it was the first time they'd ever done it. And I just watched them come to life, and I watched like authentic community take place.
Yeah.
It's powerful.
Yeah. This is simple, but not easy, as we like to say. This is one of the concept and principle in itself is a simple concept. And I think most people would agree, but living it out is extremely difficult, but so worth it.
Yeah.
So worth it. And I love what you said, Josh, when we've taken the time, again, when we've invested in the time to really pour into someone, or at least tell them, affirm the value. I've experienced this recently, that even after, we're no longer working in the same environment, those relationships are forged at such a deep, strong level that it doesn't stop, because it's incredible. And that's really what we want. I think, most of us are wired, most humans are wired for human connection. And the workplace should be no exception. We have an opportunity, to create lasting relationships and do incredibly fulfilling work in our workplace. So yeah, man.
I couldn't agree more. I think that's like, we spend the majority of our lives like at our jobs in our work. So it's like, man, why don't we all just work together to create the environment that would make us all feel fulfilled, instead of just treating work like this thing we have to like begrudgingly get through to just make it to the end of the day or the weekend. It's like, and that's what this is all leading to. These foundations of leadership is what leads to other, resources we have on, like, creating an aligned organization around principles and purpose, and creating a culture of fulfillment for everybody. That's where we're talking about the bedrock here. We're talking about the foundation to even get there. You've got to start with this. Essentially, we're talking about a belief system. You've got to believe in the intrinsic value of people. But yeah, that's what it makes me think of, is like, we're at work the majority of our lives. We spend so much time together. Why don't we just create a culture where we're all going to actually enjoy being around each other? Yeah. But I think that kind of comes with risk. So I think about like my first work experience. I want to hear what your, I don't know. I don't love, throwing dirt on other people or organizations by any means. I don't think it's honoring of people, but I will say best of intentions, hard workers. My first job out of college is a reference point for me of a lack of this, a lack of being recognized for intrinsic value. And I think about that environment, and it really was more like what you could do. It was kind of felt a little cutthroat, competitive. We're all competing in the same kind of sales environment, and we're and if you didn't, you're the lowest rung on the ladder is kind of like first person cut. So it's really performance based in what you could do. And there was, but all to say, I still think best of intentions, the, leaders there were great people and were caring, inside conversations, but there was still just this atmosphere, right? There was just this environment, like everyone gets in the same room together. It's, 8 a.m. We're starting the workday. And there's just this environment that's just created, and nobody's leading the way to kind of like change that atmosphere. It felt competitive. It felt, that's what I'm saying. Like personally, one-on-one with anybody, managers, leaders, or coworkers. I mean, we're great people. Nobody is like, I don't remember anybody there being like super, obnoxious or rude or anything, but there was just this weird collective atmosphere. Because no one was taking the intentionality to actually cultivate a culture that was different. So what remained was competition, performance-based, really, really fearful environment. Like, man, people are, if you're not performing well, you're going to get cut. And just felt like you're really just kind of like one in a million, it's no big deal. They'll just let you go and replace you. So I think about this intrinsic value principle and like how this shifts, it just shifts the atmosphere. But I think a lot of us are reluctant. I think back to when I was in that setting, I experienced that, but I was reluctant to try to do anything different. I think because of like that vulnerability of like, well, what if I open up to form a relationship with my coworkers in this way, like it feels exposing. Like, what's that going to do for me? You know what I mean? Like, so can you guys remember like a point, like, I don't know, maybe a job you had where the environment wasn't calling out your value in this way, it wasn't creating this kind of like camaraderie and this connectedness and relationships on the team, and like why did it feel so risky to try to do anything different,
So my first job was at Whataburger. I was the fry guy, and then I got promoted to the drive-through guy because they saw a gift in me
there you go.
to talk with people. Now the bad thing was I knew I was replaceable at any given moment. And if I did anything wrong, they would have a new fry guy or a new drive-through guy. Like I was my hard skills as long as, to the extent that they served them.
Yeah.
Now fast forward, I just thought that's how it was. And so eventually I worked for food and beverage at a hotel in downtown Austin. And I'm working like 70 hours a week. I'm pouring out my heart and my soul into this job. It's costing me like relationships and time. And I'm putting a lot of things on the back burner for this job. And I've never really wrestled with like, to what end, like what purpose? And eventually one day I remember like standing on the top floor of the hotel and I just felt like a spot on the schedule.
Wow.
Totally burnout. Because if you just value hard skills or you don't take time to draw out the value in people, it leads to burnout. And I put in my 2 weeks notice. They offered me either a promotion. Well, they offered me a promotion. They gave me the weekend to think about it. I came back, I put in my 2 weeks notice. It was like, I have to be made in this.
Wow.
And that challenged me and like my foundational principles, but it also challenged me in like how I lead. Like, am I drawing out the value? Am I, gold mining in other people?
Yeah.
Am I helping them reach their purpose and their goals?
Yeah. That's where my mind was going. My mind was going at where I, as the leader of either an organization or a team, have failed to live this out. And I was thinking, just based on what Josh was saying and then what you said, Zach, some of the pitfalls of leadership when it comes to truly living this out it's like the urgency. It's the pursuing the number. It's all of these things. Like it's behavior, like being so focused on someone's behavior that we automatically disregard them or say that is a measure of their value just based on how they responded to a situation. And these are some of the pitfalls. When, like I said earlier, it's simple but not easy. It's so hard to do. And as a leader who's been in those positions, I have kind of just put some of these things on the back burner when it comes to pulling and pursuing the value in people in pursuit of profit, in the pursuit of deadlines, in pursuit of positions. And so it is one of those things like, I feel like if this is a belief system, you're constantly like reflecting on how you've lived this out. And you like all of the victories and the defeats. And so that was, as you guys were talking about, it's like, man, I've missed so many opportunities to do this. And just making that personal commitment, man, I got to do better, so
what do you guys think is the risk involved? I would say most work climates, most of my work experience has been like there certainly was there wasn't any sort of expectation that as teammates we're supposed to have a more connected kind of friendship as we do work. We're supposed to be connected, know each other a little bit more, develop a high sense of trust. I don't feel like in a lot of my work experiences that was like even an expectation. So I'm wondering, like, what do you think is the risk that people think of when they think of like, oh man, like communicate to my teammates in this way that calls out their value to me personally? Like, why would I do that? What's the risk?
The first thing that comes to mind to me is there was a C.S. Lewis quote that talks about the risk of any relationship. He talks about like if you want to protect yourself from any risk, then just take your heart, take your life, and go and like put it in a chest and bury it and lock it away from any other people. Like you will be safe, and you'll miss out on pain and hurt, risk. You'll also miss out on everything else, all the joy, all the fulfillments, all the passion, all the way that you can spur me on to be better. So that's what comes to mind first. But I think there's also like a really, really practical risk. Like in me letting somebody else in or letting somebody else do it, they might not do it the way that I do it. I'm going to have to give up my preferences or my idea of perfection, or, it's going to take some time to figure this out. It's going to take some communication to figure this out. And there's going to be a little bit of a learning curve.
I would agree with that last point wholeheartedly. It's the time. I think this is investment. It's time, and it is the time it takes to create a lasting relationship, as invaluable. It's the opportunity.
There's a dramatic pause.
It is a dramatic pause. We lost you, Graylin. Say that when you come back, say that thought again.
You guys,
Okay.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. I said the risk or the opportunity cost is investing in other people. You're going to give up something else to invest. And I think, again, as a leader, and you're looking at the chart, you're looking at the list, you're looking at the spreadsheet, whatever. It's like you can put the person who has the skills in the position to run and completely miss an opportunity to invest and speak value and draw out, I love how you said value mining, someone else who may be, holding a revolutionary idea. But it's that time where we just get in that trap. We want to get things done, and we completely forego the incredible opportunity to build people. And so there's a balance there.
I know. I think it's easier to just not do it. It's easier to just live detached. It honestly is. And then if you just don't like it, you can leave the organization, or when someone leaves the organization, they resign or they're fired. There's no you don't necessarily feel anything when that happens. You're just like, oh, okay, whatever. And we just keep moving. So it's just easy to be in default mode and easier to just kind of be detached in my mind. It's hard work to do this, like what we're talking about. And there's that risk component of great, what if we, get all connected and bonded and really get to know each other well. And then all of a sudden this person wakes up and realizes, oh, I think I've discovered this cool thing about what I love and what I'm passionate about. And I think I could better live out that passion and my personal purpose in this organization over here. And then, they go on to the next thing. There's that aspect of we'll have to say goodbye eventually. So I think there's this internal mechanism where we kind of avoid pain, avoid discomfort. We
most definitely.
We're just trying to avoid the inevitable, painful circumstance. And I don't think we slow down and think about that. We just, I don't know. And I think we're raised to just be taught what work is. Get your education. And if you continue education after high school, not you don't have to, but either way, I think we're kind of raised with this expectation that you think about yourself, you think about work, and think about what's best for you, and build your career. And you're not really. I don't remember ever being taught to be on the pathway of your career, don't forget to look on the sides to learn who's with you. I don't ever remember those lessons growing up. So.
The funny thing is, in dodging pain, building relationships, work becomes the pain.
Sure.
40 hours a week, and you start to drudge going to work.
Right.
So what do you do? Because inevitably people are going to leave. They're going to move to other jobs. I mean, in our current culture, people stay at a job for 1 to 2 years. We're not 40 years at a job anymore. So why should I risk investing in people who are going to leave?
That's a great question.
Whether as a leader or just as a coworker.
Yeah.
That's a great question.
The first thing that comes to my mind is it's almost an expression. If you've latched onto your own intrinsic value, you will pour into people regardless of what you'd get in return. So it's if I invest, regardless if people receive it, regardless if people maybe leave really soon, or we're not together long term as teammates, regardless of that, it's I invest in people because that's who I am. Do you know what I mean? It's because I've latched on to my own intrinsic value, and I've latched on to the fact that I am a leader, and I do have opportunities to influence. And so that's who I am. And that's the kind of leader I am. And so I do it regardless of what I get in return. It's an expression of my own, revelation of who I am and my own intrinsic value,
I love that, because that fits with the principle that we'll talk about, which is leadership is loving and serving people. I mean, something you everywhere you go. It's not hitting numbers or whatever. And so it just becomes who you are. I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was thinking the same thing, man. I was thinking just, about love, and, love, oftentimes it is a choice, you know what I mean? And it's one of those things where you love even when it's not reciprocated. And you love knowing, if it's true love, you love knowing that you could potentially lose. And that's again, a concept, a principle, idea, a belief system that isn't often lived out in the work environment. And so it's like this rewiring. And I love what you said, Josh, about, because this is born out of my own intrinsic value. And because of that, I have to live this out. And so I think that is the unique position that we are in as leaders, to define these things that make us who we are. What is our priority? What are the foundational, principles that we are going to not just lead our organization, but how I am going to lead as a human being, as another man on this planet, And so this is, again, but it's so fulfilling when you make that decision. And I think that's where, we want to encourage other leaders, man, to take this journey, because it will outlast or outlive a position, an organization, all of the investment in people. So that was just my thought, man.
Sweet. Well, as we kind of land the plane, can I ask you guys a personal question?
No,
please.
I quit. I'm out.
Okay. So I see two different possibilities with this idea that everyone has value. Like, one, we have to understand that we have value, and then we have to start seeing that value in other people.
Yeah.
Which of those two is more difficult for you? Seeing your own intrinsic value or seeing the intrinsic value in other people?
Without a doubt, seeing it in myself. Without a question. Like that's just me personally. I think, and this is why I respond, like the times we have done these exercises where we have slowed down, put a chair in the middle of the circle, and just taken the time to invest and pour into someone. When I get in that chair, it is the most uncomfortable thing for me to hear someone else tell me what my value is, because I struggle with it internally. I have to constantly, beat away the demon of negative self-talk. I have to constantly do that. But it's incredibly, life-giving and refreshing to hear someone else speak it into you. So, as uncomfortable as it is, but I definitely struggle with it in myself, which,
totally.
That's me.
I think it starts there too. That's how I would answer it too, is probably seeing it in myself, because I think my ability, like, to really pour into people the way I dream about perfectly investing and pouring into people, and in my own family, my wife and kids, is like almost always directly corresponding to how well I receive the truth of my own intrinsic value. So the moments I'm not really connected to my own intrinsic value, I am detached and I'm not living purposefully, and I'm feeling like a victim, and I'm feeling like down on myself, and I'm feeling like I can't do it, and and I'm buying into these things that they're really just mindsets that hold me back. No one's throwing them on me. I'm just grabbing onto them and latching on and not letting go for some reason. So I think I think my struggle is always there too, because when I'm really deeply bought into, like, I could look at the moments that I'm bought into my own intrinsic value. It's the moments I'm tender and sweet with my children. You know what I mean? Like, that's where I'm like, I'm connected to it. It's the moments where, like, a teammate is sharp or, short with me, and I can look back and just be in complete self-control with grace and just be like, hey, and not like escalate and not match the intensity, or it's the moments where I don't perceive someone's action in the workplace as like, oh, they did that to spite me, or they did that behind my back. They're just trying to make a bad scenario for me. You know what I mean? The moments I'm latched onto my intrinsic value, I don't give into that kind of stuff.
It gives you a place to serve from.
Yeah.
Right. Like that's so foundational.
Yeah.
And so I hope some leaders listen to this and they start to wrestle with their intrinsic value, because I struggle with the same one. Like, I don't want to put a value on, we're saying everybody has a value, but like if we ranked our leadership from 1 to 10, and I say I'm a solid C, right? Like I'm a 7 out of 10, but I choose to show up as a 4 because it's safe and it doesn't cost me anything. I'm not going to have to risk anything. I know I can show up as a 4 and be safe. I just want to challenge some leaders out there who listen to this.
Yeah.
Take the next step. Go a little bit further. You're made for more. You have value. And if you don't view yourself as a leader, go back and listen to last week's talk. You are a leader.
There you go.
There.
Yes.
If somebody who's like, do I have any value? NPR Planet Money says, yes, the human body is worth $10 million. You have a lot of value.
That's it.
What's the practical step that you guys do to remind yourself of your leadership intrinsic value?
That's good.
Man, you're killing it with the questions, Zach. Those are two great questions in a row, man.
For real.
Do y'all like write stuff up on your mirrors or anything?
I used to. I haven't done that in a long time. But I think for me, it's just if I'm in a steady routine of just a quiet time in the morning. Yeah. Lately, I've been doing it while I walk my dog, and I'll either put something on that I listen to that reinvests, like it pours in like these foundational truths I want to believe about myself, or it's music that does the same thing. It's reflection, it's quiet, meditations, prayers, things like that. And so I've been doing that on my morning walks, and it's been like a much better way to start the day. So that's for me one in the midst of a crazy, just busy life and raising kids and doing all sorts of activities. I just need a carved out time.
You know, so. I agree with that. I think if I could reach it and run across the room and get it. Last night, my wife and I were having a conversation about the importance of, boundaries and priorities to ensure that we're able to be our best selves. And so we started writing stuff down on a dry erase board. We identify like some priorities that we are going to, we're going to fight for, we're going to contend for in our time, and every other area of life. And I think when we are really diligent and intentional about kind of laying some of those things out and creating like reference points for accountability, I think I do a little bit better. Because it's easy, with everything going on to, unravel or, kind of just be going with the flow. But man, I'm more anchored when I can, like Josh was saying, take time to reflect, and I have something I'm pursuing, and it helps, and I can show up better for other people. So that's me. What about you, man? What are you doing, Zach?
Oh shoot. I surround myself with guys like you. I place myself in an authentic community.
Boom.
Teeing up next week.
Community really is important. Like being around people that challenge me and allow me to show up, make mistakes, and not like wrestle with my words, to be an imperfect leader.
There you go.
Those anchor statements are important for me. The things that I can fall back on when things get difficult and feel crazy. And then, just quiet times. That old picture of like taking a saw to cut down a tree, and like you can cut and cut and cut, but maybe what you really need to do is go and sharpen your saw.
Okay.
Get away, take your time, sharpen your saw, and you'll be way more efficient. You'll be way more productive. So
it's good, man.
That's good.
You're dropping nuggets.
I know, man. That's so good. And Grayland, I love what you and Leslie are doing. I love that, take that purposeful intentionality of carving out what your priorities are and what's important to you guys.
It's all Leslie. All Leslie. I just show up and reap the benefits, man. She was the one who's like blocking the time off, and you better show up ready to talk about it. She gives me a couple days in advance, and that way I can prepare mentally. But no, true. Man.
I followed a better voyage, and it challenges me to be a better leader.
Yeah.
Bro.
So good.
Yeah.
Zach, let's wrap it up here with you had a kind of a call to action, which I thought was brilliant for our listeners, our community here. So remind us what that call to action was, and let's invite people to even just share in the comments how it went when they do it.
Yeah. So remember when I was talking about allowing me to show up as an imperfect leader? This would be one of those moments. Would you remind me so I can remind you what our call to action was?
Remind me. Remind you. Help me help you.
Yeah.
You were talking about I think it was along the lines of recognizing our own intrinsic value, and I think your call to action was like, wasn't it along the lines of like, what are you going to do to kind of remind yourself of that, your own intrinsic value?
I love that. Yeah. Let's do that, because I think we need to make this practical. We need to boil it down to something that we can put into practice tomorrow. Like,
right.
These costs should change how you show up at work on Wednesday.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. So just everybody who's listening, wrestle with those two ideas. Do I struggle with, identifying my own intrinsic value, or do I struggle with recognizing the intrinsic value in others?
Mm-hmm.
And whichever you land on, let's think of some practical ways to apply those tomorrow. So maybe it is taking a quiet time and reflecting on how you're wired, your strengths, your gifts, your passions, your purposes, and how you bring those to work, like how you fully show up at work with those.
Right.
So that, like, it changes your company culture. Your work needs you to show up fully you. Yeah. And then second, like if you struggle with recognizing the value of others, well, one, you might really need to take some quiet time just to reflect. I give myself grace, but I'm slow to apply that grace to other people.
Right.
I want people to allow me to show up as an imperfect leader, but I don't let others show up as an imperfect leader.
Yeah. Well, let me put it this way. This is because this is something I've done for myself that's helped.
Yeah.
So when I think of someone who I want to speak of their intrinsic value on my team, and maybe I often think usually the names of the people consuming my thoughts are the people that, you're struggling with, the people you have tension with, the people that like in the relationship, you're like, we're not on the same page. Right. So those are the people you go home thinking about. So I often challenge myself to think, okay, and usually I'm analyzing it through external behavior. So I think, all right, if I were exhibiting the same response, if I was exhibiting the same attitude, if I was doing what they were doing, how would I want someone to come and speak into me? And then I go and do that. And so that's often who I start with. It's easy to start with the people we're already most connected with, right? Yeah. And that's maybe like what you were saying earlier. I'm remembering what your call to action was, like the level 4, right? It's easy, like, oh, I'm already really connected with this person. We're already really close. Like, we're on the same team. We work together all the time. And I just want to like, hey, what's up, man? Like, I want to call out your value. That's easy. Call out the value of someone who annoys you. Someone who's frustrating you, someone you're not getting along with. I think that's like, okay, that's amping it up to a level 7 or 8 or 9 or 10 or whatever. So go for the hard thing, challenge yourself and think, man, how would I want someone to speak into me?
Good, man.
If I were doing this, and then just say that, call out who they are, mine the gold, like you said earlier, Zach, I love that. Start mining for gold in others.
Yeah. Shoot out a text message, an email, call them. That's crazy, but call them and let them know like the value that you see inside of them.
Yeah.
Don't be like, hey, you really frustrate me. I just want to try something.
I'm trying this new thing.
No, that's good.
Now you'll know. Every time I affirm you guys, you'll know it's because the day before you just really ticked me off.
Second guessing, like, what's your
wait a minute?
Oh man, this has been good, you guys. So good.
It has. Thanks. Yeah.
All right. So next week we'll pick it back up again. Next Tuesday we're going to be unpacking the foundational principle of leadership, how we define leadership as loving and serving others toward fulfillment, and we'll talk about that. And so join us next week, next Tuesday at 12 p.m. Central Time. And we'll see you then.
All right. Bye, guys.
Bye.